Good evening and welcome to these afternoon sessions. This is vk3sl, and well, today's going to be a celebration today because it's the first day that we don't have to wear masks. And of course, these missions are something of a document of the times. We're sort of chronicling the corona period. That's the whole object of it all. So we take another layer of normality, another layer towards normality, So I was going to celebrate. I've got a record on the turntable here. Here's the Mad Mountain Ride off a Chapel disc. Here we go, epic music for epic times. The Mad Mountain Ride, Queen's Hall Orchestra off an old Chapel disc. That was to herald a change of gear, a gear change in the midst of all of this corona madness. But I have to say that the Mad Mountain Ride refers to my trip home today. I have something to report, folks. It was not a good experience. I blew a head gasket on the way home from work today, just near home, thankfully, and I limped back home and I smell like burning oil. And it was very spectacular, and I think the car is gone. I don't think we're going to be able to fix it. It's an old bomb anyhow. So out with the 323 and in with something else. We'll have to look at options. Well, we do have options, but it requires a bit of organising and sorting, and yeah, it's going to keep me on my toes for the next little while, so I will get to that in a moment. I did have a subject I wanted to investigate today, and this is in true missions flavour. We'd like to look at sort of forgotten musicians, and lately we've been playing quite a few recordings of Thelma Terry and her Playboys. Now, she's an interesting band leader in the 20s, and I was keen to find out more about her. And it's one thing in another led me to the Red Hot Jazz Archive. And I can tell you a bit. She is intriguing. And I also have another one of her recordings lined up. So we will sample that in a moment, if I can find it here. Where is it? Thelma Terry and her Playboys. Yes, here it is, ready to go. But before playing it, I'll just explain a few things about her. And she was born as Thelma Coombs. Thelma Coombs. And it says, until recently, next to nothing was known about Thelma Terry. She was born in 1901 and died in 1966. And she played string bass in Chicago in the 20s. And she led an all-male band, which included Gene Krupa. And the name of the band? Thelma Terry and her Playboys. She dated Eddie Condon, a fact which briefly alludes to in his book We Called It Music. And she and her band played at a place called the Golden Pumpkin. That was at Hamlin and Madison and Broadway district of Chicago, providing work for the likes of Krupa, Bud Freeman and Bud Jacobson. And it says, in 1928, she and her band made 6 recordings under the name of Thelma Terry and her Playboys. And we've probably sampled most of those 6 now, but we've got one to follow on with shortly. And it featuring her fine leadership and string bass style. You can hear her slapping the bass. And it's fascinating, isn't it? A female double bass player heralding male groups in the 20s. I love it. Thanks to Thelma's family, we now know more. Thelma Coombs was born in 1901 in Michigan, and she learned to play the double bass because her mother was a seamstress for a rich family in Chicago, a family involved in the music business. Thelma took her first chair at the age 18 in the Chicago Women's Symphony Orchestra. She went to Austin High School, hence her association with many white jazz musicians of the so-called Austin High Gang, such as Freeman and Jacobson. I think Bix was associated with the Austin High Gang as well. MCA formed Thelma and her Playboys in the spring of 27, and the band was still active until Thelma disbanded them herself in 1929. Thelma and the Playboys toured nationally, playing in Atlantic City, New York, and Kansas City, not to mention the Golden Pumpkin in Chicago. Savannah, Georgia was the last stop during the summer of 1929. This is where Thelma met her future husband, who owned a nightclub complex the band played in. Just before Thelma quit, the band was scheduled to tour internationally, starting in Berlin. Although the band was a success and Thelma was a star, she was very unhappy. Her male band members were insubordinate, and some were harassing her. Tired of the show business, she quit in the summer of 1929 and married Willie Haar, a wealthy businessman in Savannah, Georgia, after dating him all that summer. 2 years later, daughter Patty was born, and 3 years after that, the marriage ended. Thelma returned to Chicago to make a comeback, but had a hard time finding work during the Depression. She went back to Michigan to live a quiet life as a mother and a grandmother. Her daughter told me, though, that sometime in the 50s she and her mother went to see a Gene Krupa concert. They went backstage and Krupa greeted Thelma warmly. Hollywood was making a movie about Krupa's life at the time, and he was apologetic that it could not include the part that Thelma had played in his career, since her name was no longer known to the general public. Thelma graciously said that was all right. Sadly, Thelma Terry died on May the 30th, 1966 of throat cancer, but she was beloved in her home community and was a fine and loving mother and grandmother. Interestingly, she always disliked the first name Thelma. Only the show business people called her that. Friends and her family called her Terry. Hence the choice of Thelma Terry as a professional name. There we go. The story of Thelma Terry. So let's listen to another of these recordings. Thelma Terry and her Playboys, a recording made for Columbia in 1928. This is vk3sl testing. Starlight and Tulips, Thelma, Terry and her Playboys, a recording made in 1928. This is vk3sl, testing on 160 and streaming online. Live streaming service on YouTube can be found under my call sign, vk3sl. Just look it up and you can be entertained there. All right, I have things to do, so we'll play another episode of The Shadow. I'm pleased to have found this Radio Echoes archive here, and there's a lot of episodes from the Australian contingency of Shadows, and they're a little bit over-processed, but they're okay, and they're listenable. I did sample last night's one, and it seems to it seems to be okay. So we'll now listen to an episode called The Case of the Burning Skull. This is vk3sl testing.
The Shadow, who aids the forces of law and order, is in reality Lamont Cranston, wealthy young man about town. Years ago in the Orient, Cranston learnt a strange and mysterious secret. The hypnotic power to cloud men's minds so they cannot see him. Cranston's friend and companion, the lovely Margot Lane, is the only person who knows to whom the voice of the invisible Shadow belongs. Today's drama, The Case of the Burning Skull. A late afternoon thunderstorm breaks over the city. As the streets empty and everyone runs for cover, two men collide as they dash into the shelter of a small doorway.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Cranston. Lamont Cranston.
Hi, it's Steve Grant. Hello, Steve.
Oh, if this isn't the strangest coincidence.
Haven't seen you for ages, Steve. How's our promising young chemist?
Listen, Lamont.
The last I heard, you had a great job with the Guild Chemists Alliance. Still with them?
Yes. Lamont.
Married?
Yes. Lamont, listen to me. You won't believe it, but I was on my way over to see you. I'm in trouble.
Oh, what's the matter, Steve?
I'm going to die.
Well, we all are, sooner or later.
But we don't all get special announcements.
You did?
Yes.
When? How?
It was last night. I haven't been sleeping well lately, been nervous and high-strung. Been working pretty hard on a new thorium extract.
Yes?
But about 2 o'clock this morning, I got up for a drink of water. I went into the bathroom, turned on the tap, and then
Go on.
I saw a burning skull staring at me.
You what?
I hadn't bothered putting on the lights. In the darkness, I saw a hideous burning skull grinning at me, pale and flickering, burning a dull green in the blackness.
Yes?
It was a terrible shock. I suppose I must have fainted. When I recovered, it was gone. But I knew it was a warning.
Now, look here, Steve. You should realize that the obvious fact of the matter is that you're tired, overworked, possibly headed for a nervous breakdown.
It was a presentiment, Lamont, a warning.
It was an hallucination. Now, you pay attention to your Uncle Lamont. You want my advice?
Oh, yes.
Now, here's the address of a friend of mine, Dr. Neil Harrison. He specializes in your kind of case. Too much work and too much imagination. You go and see him at once.
Then you don't think that skull...
My dear Steve, the most horrible presentiment in the world can be dispelled with bicarbonate of soda and 2 weeks in the country. I know. Hello?
Is that Mr. Cranston?
Yes.
This is Helen Grant, Steve's wife.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Grant.
Mr. Cranston, can you come over to our house right away?
Come over? What time is it, Mrs. Grant?
It's 5 o'clock, almost dawn. I know this is an unusual request, Mr. Cranston, but...
Anything wrong?
Yes,
With Steve?
yes.
What's happened?
He's been kidnapped.
What?
Please come over right away, Mr. Cranston. I can't explain on the telephone. I can't even understand half of what's happened myself. Please come as quickly as you can. I'm desperate. Oh, Mr. Cranston, I'm so glad you're here. I've been half out of my mind with worry.
Now, Mrs. Grant. Suppose I come in and you tell me all about it.
Yes, you come in. Please sit down, Mr. Cranston.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Grant, from the beginning.
Well, it was about midnight. I'd gone to bed and had been asleep a few hours. Suddenly I awoke. I'd heard a sound, an awful sound.
What was it?
It was a kind of sobbing. Seemed to come from Steve's bedroom across the hall.
What did you do?
I got up and went to the door of my room. I opened it. It was dark in the house. In the blackness, I saw...
What?
A burning skull.
You're sure of that?
Yes, it was just a little distance away. It was coming out of Steve's room, floating in the air, burned with a green, flickering flame. Oh, it was ghastly.
What did you do?
I screamed, and I fainted. When I came to, it was gone. I rushed into Steve's room to tell him. Steve was gone, too.
I see.
All his clothes were still in his room, everything. He hadn't packed and left. It's obvious he was taken away. Taken by that horrible skull.
We're going to find Steve, Mrs. Grant. You know, I believe in the existence of murder, burglary, kidnapping, crime, clever criminals. I believe in almost anything. But I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, this is a lovely crime to serve me early in the morning, Cranston. What in the blazes do you do? Do you sit up all night working out crazy cases to worry me with?
I haven't enough imagination to invent anything like this, Commissioner.
Yeah, well, what about you, Miss Lane? Do you believe in this ghost story?
I don't know yet. I want to hear the rest of the story.
That's all there is to it. First, Grant came to me with his story about burning skull, and then Mrs. Grant.
Was it a kidnapping, Lamont?
Perhaps. I've gone over Steve's room. All his clothes are there, his shoes, everything. Most important, his passport was there, licenses, checkbook, everything.
What's that supposed to prove?
Nothing much, except the fact that Grant doesn't seem to have walked out of the house voluntarily. A man might think up an ingenious plan like this to leave his wife, but he doesn't leave all his money and papers and important documents behind.
Yes, that's right.
But what about the sobbing noise Mrs. Grant heard?
And I couldn't find anything to account for that.
So it all boils down to this. A chap disappears. He and his wife tell a crazy yarn about burning skulls, and we're supposed to believe the said skull kidnapped the man.
That explanation will do until a better one comes along. Have you a better one, Commissioner?
Certainly, I've got a better one. The obvious one. Grant and his wife thought up the scheme between them to defraud the insurance company.
He isn't insured.
Well, he's trying to get publicity for some crazy invention he's made.
He was a research chemist working for the Guild Chemist Alliance. He made no invention, and if he did, it would belong to the Guild Company and not to him.
Well, then I don't know. It's beyond me, Cranston. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't believe you or Grant or his wife. I don't believe that Grant saw anything, either of them. And if they did, it wasn't a burning skull. You can think that over for a while. Hello, Weston speaking. Yes? What? What was that? Well, all right. I'm coming right over.
What is it, Commissioner? You look startled, to say the least.
That phone call has just dropped a bomb into my lap, Miss Lane.
And now let's have the explosion.
Adam Edwards, the broker, has just reported a burglary in his home. $15,000 in cash was stolen.
Why, Commissioner, a robbery of that size is no explosion.
No? Well, perhaps you'll sing a different song when you know the money was stolen by a burning skull. Suppose you tell us your story, Mr. Edwards.
Well, it's quite simple and quite frightening. I was awakened this morning about 3 o'clock by the sound of somebody moving about in my study.
Yes?
It's a well-known fact that I keep large sums in cash in the house. I assumed that some ill-advised burglar was trying to relieve me of my money.
Why ill-advised?
I'm a crack shot, Mr. Cranston, and have a license to keep a revolver in the house. I immediately arose, got the gun, and tiptoed towards the study.
And then?
I opened the door very carefully. I confess I was shocked and frightened. In the darkness, I saw a burning skull hovering over my desk, while burning skeleton hands rifled the drawers.
So now a pair of hands are added to the skull. Pretty soon we'll get the whole skeleton.
Instantly, the skull and hands rushed off through the darkness. I tried to follow. I heard the thing blundering about on the far side of the study. Before I could catch up, it was gone. And so was my money. And that's all.
This is too much for me. What is this, a conspiracy? Are you trying to pull my leg?
You don't believe my story, Commissioner?
Frankly, no.
I see. Come this way, please.
Where to?
To this large annex on the far side of my study. Something to show you. You see, I'm an amateur photographer, and I've had this annex fitted up as a darkroom.
What's all this mean?
Please notice that the annex door's alongside the door leading out of the study. Evidently, the burning skull blundered into the annex first by mistake, and then turned and ran out of the real door.
I still don't see what all this has got to do with the skull. I tell you, you've been seeing things.
We've been seeing reality. Come into the darkroom.
Huh?
I'm sorry, but this red safety light's all the illumination I can give you.
Oh, it's enough, Mr. Edwards. Go ahead.
When the intruder came into this room last night, he apparently dislodged one of my unexposed plates and knocked it into the developer tray. Look at this plate, Commissioner. Tell me what you see on it.
Good heavens.
It's a skeleton hand. Well, this is a fine thing, Mr. Cranston. A fine thing indeed.
What's worrying you, Margot?
What's worrying me? That's the question I've been wanting to ask you. You sit around all day as though it were gloomy Sunday.
I was thinking... No, I was worrying about the burning skull.
Suddenly at 7 o'clock tonight, you announce they're going for a drive. Where?
To visit a friend.
Why?
To pick up a clue on this case.
Who's the friend?
Dr. Neil Harrison. I sent Steve Grant to see him yesterday afternoon. It's just possible that Steve might have said something to Dr. Harrison that would give us a clue.
Then all that worrying, thinking this afternoon didn't help? No inspiration?
It certainly did.
This is a
Now,
test
the
transmission
fire of inspiration was a little more cold.
To be
vk3sl.
shoveled on by Lamont Cranston Stoker.
No, Lamont Cranston Shadow.
Next patient, please. That's odd. Waiting room's empty. I could have sworn I had a patient come in. Who's that?
Your patient, Dr. Harrison.
Patient? Where?
An invisible patient, Doctor.
Oh, this is absurd. It's some trick. Who are you?
Men call me the Shadow.
The Shadow.
You've heard of the Shadow, Dr. Harrison. The Shadow seeks only one thing, the truth.
The truth? About what?
The truth about all things. The truth about Steve Grant.
Grant. Oh, yes.
He came to see you yesterday.
Yes, Lamont Cranston sent him.
You treated him?
No, I didn't.
Why not? The truth, Dr. Harrison.
Yes, I'll tell you the truth. I couldn't treat him. He was...
Dr. Harrison. He's dead. Shot by somebody from outside that window.
Lamont, where are you? Lamont!
Right here, Margot. Outside this window.
I heard shots while I was waiting in the car and
Yes, someone fired through the window while the Shadow was questioning Dr. Harrison. The doctor is dead. Now, come on. We've got to find that murderer if we can.
But it's pitch dark, Lamont.
Careful. He must have run off this way.
Do you know who killed the doctor?
No. But I'm afraid we'll never find out now.
Lamont,
Yes, Margot?
look. Running down the street. Way up there, Lamont.
Yes, I see it, Margot.
It's a burning skeleton.
What is the mystery of the burning skeleton? Listen for exciting developments in part 2 of tonight's Shadow story. And now, back to the Shadow. We pick up our story as Commissioner Weston is interviewing Margot and Lamont at police headquarters.
Cranston, this is the most insane case I've ever heard of.
Well, there's nothing insane about it. Harrison was shot dead. The murderer fired through that window. It was a .38 caliber slug that pierced Harrison's heart. What could be more realistic than that?
Nothing. Outside of the fact that you claim a glowing skeleton finger pulled the trigger.
We saw the skeleton, Commissioner.
Oh, I believe you, Miss Lane. Too many people have seen it for me to hold on to the hallucination theory. But I only wish I could see it just once.
Commissioner.
Yes, what is it, Muldoon?
We've just picked up a message from one of the patrol cars.
Yes?
They've located the burning skull just break into the Zircon Jewel store on High Street. He's in there now. If we rush, we can get over there in time to trap him coming out.
Let's hurry, Commissioner. This time it looks like you're going to get your wish.
Where is this Zircon Jewel store? How much further, Muldoon?
Oh, just around the next corner, Commissioner.
I only hope we're in time.
Yes, I wouldn't want the Commissioner to lose the pleasure of meeting our skeleton friend.
Easy, Muldoon, easy. We're not supposed to arrive with a brass band announcing us. Go a little more, then stop. We'll walk the rest of the way.
Yes, sir. I can see the police patrol car up ahead.
Then the skeleton must still be inside the store.
All right, stop here, Muldoon.
Yes, sir.
Now, come on. And remember, let's keep quiet. This is our big chance to know.
Commissioner!
Who in places are those maniacs?
Look, he's coming out.
It's a burning skeleton, Commissioner.
Good heavens. Well, come on, let's get up and... Got him, you men! Don't let him get away!
They're shooting wild, Commissioner.
I can't blame him at all, the saints preserve me. But that's a nasty thing to be seen in the dark. He's getting away.
Faster!
It's no use, Commissioner. We'll never get him. No one will ever get him. Now, don't start any superstitious nonsense, Muldoon.
Muldoon's right, Commissioner. The skeleton's vanished.
We couldn't hold him, sir. We did the best we could. He got our plan. This is a fine thing. What's the matter with you? Are you a lot of babies afraid of skeletons? All right, then. Let's get back to the circus store and see how much the skeleton got away with this time.
Wait.
All right, what now?
Apparently our thief did not get away with all he took. Look on the ground there.
Lamont, there's 3 unset diamond brilliants.
I've got them. Here you are, Commissioner. Hold. Look.
What's the matter?
Have a close look at these diamonds. Look at the color.
Color?
They've turned blood red.
Lamont. Lamont.
Yes.
Stop pacing up and down and listen to me.
Got any ideas?
Yes, suppose we get some sleep. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, Lamont. How much longer are we going to sit here and think?
Until I can work out 3 things.
We're not going over all that again, are we?
Why was Steve Grant kidnapped? Why was Dr. Harrison murdered?
Because they knew something about the burning skeleton.
But what?
Well, you know the answer to that. You told me yourself. It's tied up with a photograph of the skeleton hand and the diamonds that turned red.
Why did those diamonds turn red? How was that photograph made?
Lamont, let's get some sleep. I'm going home.
Only Harrison had taken Grant as a patient.
Oh, didn't he?
No, he told the Shadow he couldn't treat him.
Well, what difference does that make?
If he'd taken Steve as a patient, he might have left some record of some kind. As it is, his information died with him. Oh, it's the door. I'll answer it.
Oh, who in the world could that be so early?
Oh, it's Grant. Come in.
Oh, Mr. Cranston,
Now, this is Miss Lane. She's working with me on the case. Margot, Mrs. Grant.
How do you do, Mr. Jones?
Now, what's wrong, Mrs. Grant?
Oh, Mr. Cranston, I'm frightened.
Why?
The burning skull. What about it? I think I'm going to be the next victim. You?
Now, what do you mean?
I've had warnings. When I put the lights out, objects flame up and glow with a weird green color. Steve's watch, money on his desk, spoons, silver, many things. Heavens. Then, last night, I decided I'd sleep in Steve's room. I thought if the burning skull came back, I'd be waiting. Well, did you see it? Did it come back? I didn't see it, but I know it was in the room.
How do you know?
Look at my arms. Good grief, they're covered with burns.
Huh?
Look, Lamont. It's as though a skeleton hand had clutched Mrs. Grant. Or the hand of a giant, or a mythological god like Thor, or...
What?
I said like a...
You said Thor. Thor, what an idiot I've been. Steve practically told me the answer to this case when I first met him.
What do you mean, Lamont?
I mean, I know all about the burning skeleton. Come on, Mrs. Grant. We're going to police headquarters right away.
Now, just a minute. As I said before, don't all talk at once. All right, then. Now, what do you want me to do about Mrs. Grant, Cranston?
Here's the idea. You ought to take Mrs. Grant into protective custody. It's to be kept secret.
Why?
You'll find out soon enough. At 6 o'clock tonight, I want you to give this news item to the paper. I've written it out for you.
Oh, Cranston, break it down a bit, will you? Look, you're making me dizzy.
Now, listen, Commissioner. Do you want to get your hands on the burning skeleton?
What a question.
Then do exactly what I've told you.
And what in blazes are you going to do?
I'm going to trap the burning skeleton.
And now for a resume of the news. In an attempt to protect the wife of Steve Grant, the police have taken Mrs. Grant into protective custody. She's being held under close guard at the old mansion house outside the city. There, in a lonely building set in lonely fields, the widow of Steve Grant wonders about the fate of her husband and the strange burning skeleton that was his doom.
Turn it off, Margaret. That's fine. Now, what time is it?
8 o'clock.
Then our skeleton has known the news for 2 hours. He'll be here soon.
Here at the mansion house?
Correct. Under the misapprehension that Mrs. Grant is here, too.
But he's only going to find us. Just the 2 of us.
The 3 of us. You're forgetting the Shadow.
Oh. But look here, shouldn't you be the Shadow now? Suppose our burning skeleton walks in unexpectedly.
He can't. We'll have plenty of warning of his coming. I've run a circuit of electricity in a circle around the field surrounding this house.
But how will that warn us?
There are 4 concentric rings circling this house, Margot. Each is made of a single wire carrying enough current to signal when the skeleton steps over. We'll hear the signals on this electroscope connected with the circuits.
But wouldn't any person crossing those circuits cause the signal to sound?
Not any person, Margot. Just our friend.
Why?
Because of the peculiar constitution of his body. You see, just a minute. That's the electroscope.
The skeleton?
Yes. He's inside the outermost circuit. He's inside the second circuit. He's inside the third. Now, you know what you're to do?
I'm to put out the lights and hide in the cupboard beside the switch.
Right. When the skeleton gets into this room, the electroscope signals will reach a peak. They'll then cut off automatically.
Then I'm supposed to switch on the lights again.
He's inside the fourth circuit. Now, hurry, Margot.
Lamont,
Don't argue. This man is dangerous. Put out the lights.
Right.
Into the cupboard. Stand by.
What's that? Who's there? Don't move.
Good evening, Steve Grant.
Who's that?
The Shadow.
Shadow? I can't see you.
No man sees the Shadow, but all men see you, skeleton.
You know Shadow.
The Shadow knows everything. You were a foolish man, Grant. A fool.
I was desperate. When Dr. Harrison told me I'd caught radium poisoning, that the salts were in my blood and bones, that there was no cure, that there was death waiting 2 months off.
You sought to revenge yourself on the world.
No, I thought only of my wife. She had nothing. There was no money, no insurance, nothing. I had to raise something for her. I couldn't leave her penniless.
You had no right to rob.
There was no other way to raise money.
You had no right to murder.
There was no other way to keep my secret. I couldn't let her discover her husband was a thief. She'd never have kept the money I was raising for her.
You were insane.
I was desperate. Oh, for heaven's sake, you can't betray me.
The Shadow seeks justice. Justice. There will be justice for your wife. There must be justice for those you have robbed and those you have killed.
No. Now, listen, I'm going to die anyway. I'll pay for the deaths, pay with my own.
There must be justice, Grant.
You'll never take me. I warn you, I've killed before. I'm not afraid to kill now.
You're mad, Grant. You must pay in full.
No!
This is a test transmission.
How can you kill an invisible
vk3sl.
shadow?
Whatever you are, I'll kill you.
Kill the Shadow. With what?
Not now, perhaps, but another time. I'm powerful, Shadow, as powerful as you. These burning salts in my bone and flesh give me a power no man has ever realized before. I'll return for you soon.
You will never leave.
Try and stop me.
You can't escape the Shadow, Grant.
Try and stop me.
Stop, Grant.
Shadow!
Stay there, Margot. Keep out of this.
I'm going with you. There he goes, across the field. You can see the glowing skeleton running.
Keep back, Margot, if you value your life.
Why? What's the matter?
Grant is running towards the high-tension wires on the road. If he gets too close to that tremendous current, stop, Grant. Stop running.
No one will ever stop me. No one will ever stop me.
If you value your life, don't move another step. Stop.
Shadow,
He's dead.
Well, let's get back to town and notify Commissioner Weston, Margot.
Oh, Lamont, it was awful. To be electrocuted that way.
Perhaps it was just as well, Margot.
But, Lamont, I just can't understand it. What happened to Steve Grant?
He was experimenting on a radioactive salt called thorium.
Thorium. Oh. So that's why the mention of the god Thor put you on the right track.
Yes, Margot. Grant apparently became infected with enough radium salt to poison him. When he first saw the skull grinning at him, it was his own face he saw in the bathroom mirror.
Oh.
Dr. Harrison must have explained the truth to Grant. Grant turned desperate and tried to raise money to leave to his wife.
And he killed Dr. Harrison before the doctor could tell the police the truth about the burning skeleton.
Yes. I should have realized the truth sooner. Naturally, radium emanations are the only thing that can make a man's bones shine in the dark. Radium explains how Edwards' photographic plate was exposed. Radium accounts for the diamonds that turn color. Radium emanations change the color of precious stones.
So when you had that news broadcast made about his wife being at Mansion House, you knew it would track him.
Of course. His only thought was for his wife. That's the explanation of the sound she heard that night he vanished. She heard poor Steve crying hysterically. When she got up and opened her door, she didn't see a skeleton kidnapping Steve. She saw poor Steve leaving.
I don't think it's poor Steve. Poor Mrs. Grant.
Don't worry about her, Margot. The Shadow may be just, but he is also merciful.
So the Shadow is going to temper his justice with mercy.
Yes. And The name of that mercy is Cranston's bankroll.
In a moment, I shall return with further news of The Shadow. Next week, same time, same station, we bring you another strange and thrilling adventure in The Shadow's daring battle against the forces of evil. Be sure to listen.
As you sow evil, so shall you reap evil. Crime does not pay. The Shadow knows.
This feature is produced by Reg Johnston for Grace Gibson Radio Productions, a masterpiece of suspense.
Yeah, what an incredible imagination. Fabulous story. I got to hear most of that. In fact, the case of the burning skull. And I tell you what, it's the case of the burning oil here. I'm just stink because the head gasket blew in the car, and there was white smoke everywhere, and I can't get it off my clothes. It's pervasive. Well, there we have another episode from the Radio Echoes archive, and it's most impressive. I'm enjoying these shadows. And there's a lot more where they came from. So we'll keep rolling along with episodes of The Shadow. vk3sl, test missions on 160. Well, at this point, I've got to go back inside and do stuff. So what I will do is put on something to sort of change the mood and to slightly heighten my mood, to be honest. I've got a bit of thinking to do. Let's have a listen to Bill Evans. Now, I have Frank to thank for Bill Evans because he's been reintroduced to me, and we had a program a few weeks back with where we looked at Waltz for Debbie. Here's the album with the Bill Evans trio. I think there are a couple of different versions of Waltz for Debbie and others from other items from the same album. So yeah, let's, for the next hour or so, let's enjoy the music of Bill Evans. This is vk3sl testing.
transmission, vk3sl.
the anaesthetising sounds of the Bill Evans Trio. What a wonderful album. Waltz for Debbie is the name of the album. It's live at the Vanguard. Recorded in 1961, shortly before Scott LaFaro tragically met his early demise. Yeah, I thank you, Frank, for bringing that to my attention. Some weeks ago we sort of looked at this album, or looked at some of the tracks, and discussed its provenance. And it was good to feature it on Emissions. It's done a lot to bring me back down to earth. I'm still covered in oil, burning oil from the head gasket that popped. It was quite a spectacular demise of our little Ford Laser, our 323. It's gone. It's going to the wreckers now. I don't think it's worth fixing. Anyhow, made it home. And that's the main thing. All right then, we'll leave it at that. Should be back tomorrow, all being well. Have a good evening. This is vk3sl, testing on 160.
She